So, if you just have like two servers in the data center of the hospital maintaining the blockchain, if those, if there's a fire or somebody accidentally trips over a cord, then your data might be gone. And then the other problem is you would probably want different computers in the hospital, the nursing station, to also be nodes that participate in this blockchain. And so now you have to have special hardened hardware devices. You don't want somebody to just be able to walk up to a nursing station, stick in a USB stick, and download the blockchain. So we don't really have any good, people have built hardened PCs, but not for this particular use case. And there's work that remains from a development standpoint. The next one is consortium chains. So this is instead of having one company running a private chain, you have 10 companies that all participate on a chain, and they all sign legal contracts or something where they promise not to divulge the data in an illegal way. And so now you have privacy, and you don't have a single point of failure anymore. So this has good scalability still, good availability and auditability, because one party out of the 10 can't mess around with the data or lose the data. But it's not really clear that this meets HIPAA guidelines. Because if I'm sharing a blockchain with another hospital, because we're part of a consortium, employees of that other hospital can look at my patient data, and HIPAA does not like that. So that's one challenge. Another problem is the whole reason why companies usually like to keep data secret, besides just the legal issue around patient privacy, is that they don't want their competitors to have access to certain data. They don't want to know how many widgets you sold, or how many patients you have, or how much you get reimbursed for a particular procedure. So if you build a consortium, then you're basically the exact people who are going to have all your data are your competitors. So that's not that great. And then just in general, lots of people have, in theory, have access to the data. Anyone of the consortium partners that's an employee that's working on the system can access the data. The next one is FHIR-like systems. So FHIR is a protocol where you have a database that has basically an authentication mechanism. So there's a database. It has a traditional database. It has patient data in it. And then when somebody wants to ask for that data, there's an authentication mechanism that says, hey, is this person allowed to read John Smith's radiology report? And so you could imagine building a FHIR-like system where the blockchain just acts for permissions management. So basically, just telling whether a certain doctor is allowed to look at a certain record in a certain hospital. And then you just put the actual sensitive data on traditional databases behind a regular firewall and all that. So this has fantastic scalability because all the data is just running on regular servers. And then it's nice that it's inherently very decentralized, because each one of these servers is basically anyone can add a new server into the system, and they're all independent. The problem is the system is complex because now you have two layers. You have these servers, and then you also have the blockchain component. And then another problem is, like, the system is kind of useless, because I have to know that John Smith had a radiology report, or otherwise I don't know to look for it in the server. So I have to put something on the public blockchain, just some kind of cookie that lets me know that there's something useful for John Smith. And that in itself is probably already illegal. And then in general, if we're going to use traditional databases anyway to hold the actual data, why not just ask them if John Smith has a radiology report? Why do we need a blockchain at all? So these are difficult questions. And there might be some use cases where this still makes sense. The next one is a Factom-like system. So Factom is an early blockchain system, and what they deal with is mainly proof of existence. So you have documents, and all you care about with those documents is, do they exist? So can we prove that there's a document with a certain hash, that relates to John Smith that happened 2 months ago, and all the blockchain does is just store that hash, so that we know that there's like a record in existence. So it's good for scalability because the actual data itself is stored in a traditional database again. It has a great audit trail. But the main problem is it has complex app development issues. Because now, with this type of system, anyone can publish a proof of existence. So I can say, John Smith had this report, and I can put that on the public Ethereum blockchain. And there's no filter to say, well, you're not really somebody who knows anything about John Smith or should be able to report that they had a radiology report. So the way you build something with a Factom-like system is you have a very complicated client application that sits on top of the blockchain that keeps track of who is a valid authority to make attestations about people in the system, and then it knows that some of those things about this patient are invalid because they don't have a valid signature key that you recognize. So it puts a lot of work on the app developer to keep track of what's legitimate data. And also the smart contracts, you can't do any decentralized smart contracts because all the actual data is at a centralized party. The next one is zero knowledge systems. So this is, I can't really go into this in detail, but this is kind of the ultimate dream in handling patient data, private data on a public blockchain. And the idea, this is oversimplifying it, but the idea is you take the patient data, you encrypt it, and then you take the actual algorithm that you're going to run against that patient data. It's in the form of a smart contract, but you encrypt that too. So now you have an encrypted piece of data and an encrypted program that runs against the encrypted data. But you actually run all of that on a public computer, so on the public Ethereum blockchain, and then it spits out an encrypted result. So everything is secret, but it all runs in a public environment. Everything is validated. All the rules are validated in a public environment, but nobody can actually see what's happening. So there are some zero-knowledge systems that people have built that actually work for limited applications. The most well-known one is called Zcash, which is an anonymous blockchain for that's currency. And you could apply this same technology to medical records. And it's also simple in that it just uses a regular blockchain, aside from the encryption. And that's where the problem is. So there's probably about 50 people or something in the world that are competent enough to actually write software that uses zero-knowledge proofs because they're extremely mathematically complex. And the performance on these systems is really bad. The encryption is very computationally intensive. And finally, there's many constraints in terms of when zero-knowledge proof is possible and when it's not. And so it's hard for me as a non-expert to evaluate, but it may not actually be flexible enough for medicine. And then the last one is called plasma chains. So if you go to Ethereum Research, that's the name of the website, it's .ch. So the research, the last two letters, CH are at the end. If you go there, Vitalik, like a couple of days ago, posted a minimal viable plasma chain white paper implementation and description. And this is basically a chain that you can run alongside Ethereum where you can very cheaply do calculations, and in theory also have some limited privacy. And it inherits a lot of the properties of a public blockchain, but is lower cost and in theory at least can have some limited privacy. The main problems with it are, number one, poor data availability. So with a plasma system, there's a mechanism for punishing the maintainers of the plasma chain. So there'll be like a pool of people that would maintain that plasma chain. You can punish them if they, in some ways, if they stop producing new blocks or produce false blocks. But it's really limited. If somebody just shuts down the plasma chain and stops handing out the data, there's ways for data to get lost so that people can't access it anymore. So that doesn't make it great if you're trying to put medical data on there. They're very complicated. They have large fixed costs in that you have to write very complicated Ethereum smart contracts on the public chain to make plasma chains work, and there's a lot of overhead when people interact with the system. And as of now, there's no actual implementation of this thing, but it looks promising. The final main problem for patient data is that it still may not meet all HIPAA requirements. So essentially what you're doing is you're going to run all you're going to analyze medical records in this private chain. So you might, try to figure out if a patient is at risk of some disease. And then if the people maintaining that private chain do something malicious, you can do some stuff on the public chain where you can punish them, force them to have a deposit that they place slash, so that you can produce financial incentives that people will properly maintain this private chain. The problem is when you do that, when you basically have an arbitration and you complain that somebody is doing something wrong with the private chain, you have to divulge at least a small part of the calculation that you claim they did incorrectly. So if the mistake on the private chain is that somebody said that somebody's blood pressure was above 140 when it was really under 140, you would have to give at least that tiny piece of data, divulge that on the public chain in order to punish that actor, and that may already be a HIPAA violation. Anyway, well then the final one, and this isn't really serious, is maybe we should just all let our health records be public. That would solve all the problems. In terms of scalability, and we could, in theory, it could revolutionize medicine if medical data was more available and everybody could run machine learning against all of our data. The problem, of course, is that your employer could discriminate against you because you have some disease. And then, of course, there's a million Black Mirror-style dystopias that have to do with all of us knowing way too much about each other. Yeah, it's something to think about anyway. Anyway, that's my presentation. Is Nicole here yet?
Oh, it's Andrew. I'm here. And,
yes, you're here. Great. So our final presenter is here, Andrew.
Oh, do you want to take any questions first?
Oh yeah, I think we have a little time now because we had 4 talks, but one person didn't show up. Does anyone have any questions? Well, second.
I saw a video recently about Estonia having really advanced technology as far as citizen data, including healthcare. How do they handle the health data? Is it open record in the government, and then it's just distributed out?